Women with Disabilities Victoria acknowledges the Australian Aboriginal and Torres Strait Islander peoples as the first inhabitants and traditional custodians of the lands on which we live and work. We pay our respects to ancestors and elders past and present. The WDV community is committed to honouring the unique cultural and spiritual relationship Aboriginal and Torres Strait Islander peoples have with the lands and waters and their rich contribution to society. We acknowledge the ongoing strength and resilience of Aboriginal and Torres Strait Islander women with disabilities, as they are 35 times more likely to experience violence. This course will use gendered language when discussing violence, describing perpetrators of violence with he/him pronouns and victim survivors with she/her pronouns. The use of gendered language is a conscious choice that reflects the evidence base on family violence, that it is overwhelmingly perpetrated by men against women. This is not to suggest that violence cannot be perpetrated and experienced by men, women, and gender non-binary people, or detract from experiences of violence that any of these people may have had. Research reflects that 53.2% of trans and gender diverse people report experiencing sexual violence or coercion. Furthermore, among adults with a disability, non-binary people report the highest rates of experiencing violence from an intimate partner. Prevention of family violence requires an acknowledgement of these gendered dynamics, as well as an understanding of intersecting forms of discrimination, including homophobia, ableism, racism, and ageism. We acknowledge people have different ways of talking about their bodies and making sense of their experience of disability. The language in this course prioritises person-first language. We acknowledge for many people, identity-first language is a source of pride, which can be used to deliberately resist cultural shame.
What we mean by culture in this webinar. The term culture is difficult to define. Culture usually describes the broad collection of common behaviors and attitudes of a group of people in a certain place and time. A culture is not one-dimensional. It always intersects with and is shaped by systematic and structural power. It's not the same thing to all people, and it's not the same thing at any given moment or in any given situation. It changes over time and place, so we mean many things when we talk about culture. In this webinar, the term culture will be discussed in relation to beliefs, values, attitudes, and assumptions, but it won't be tied to any specific community groups.
This module uses the term lived experience consultant to refer to any person who is engaged in a professional capacity to draw on their personal knowledge and understanding of issues and events gained through direct, real-life involvement. They can include bilingual educators, support workers, and advocates. Please note, in these modules we will be discussing violence and discrimination against women and people with disabilities. These topics can be distressing for some participants. If you are feeling upset at any time, please exercise self-care strategies. Pause the module, take a break, chat to a friend or colleague. If you wish to speak to someone about how you are feeling or your own experiences of violence, you can contact 1-800-RESPECT on 1-800-737-732. This service is also available for third-party debrief if you're a worker experiencing vicarious trauma.
Hi everybody, and thank you for joining us. I'm Steph from Women with Disabilities Victoria, and I'm joined by my colleague Vahidi from the Multicultural Centre for Women's Health, and we will be delivering Module 4 of the Women with Disabilities Victoria's micro-webinar series. This will be exploring the actions to build workforce capacity to prevent violence against migrant and refugee women, non-binary and gender diverse people with disabilities. We are absolutely thrilled to be joined by Nadia, who is a lived experience advocate and PACE Leadership Program graduate. They will be providing their expertise on how organisations can best implement culturally safe and accessible prevention initiatives. Nadia, would you like to tell us a little bit more about yourself?
Yeah, thank you, Steph. Hi, everyone. My name is Nadia. I am a late diagnosed autistic woman with ADHD. I've only been diagnosed 3 years now. I'm originally from Singapore, and I've been living in Melbourne for the past 6 years. So I'm still a fairly new migrant woman. Yes.
Thanks, Nadia. Could you tell us a little bit more about the PACE program, what that is for people who may not be aware?
So PACE Leadership Program is for all women, anyone who non-binary, anyone who wants to complete how would I say it? So let's say for myself personally, maybe I can just speak on my own experience. Was that I was a fairly new migrant. I did not have any sort of social connections yet, and I was not working, obviously, and I was fully at home. I didn't know how to drive. I think I was a new driver back then, so it was really hard, and I was really trying to step out there and find new social connections, meet other women, at the same time, just learn new things or have an opportunity to upgrade myself. So I came across the PACE Leadership Program, which was free. It was fully online. So that was also another thing that was amazing, because I did not have to plan travel, and I could actually have my children with me at home to complete the course. It was a 5-day course, and it was really amazing. I think what I actually took away from the course was just meeting other migrant women like myself and hearing their experiences, and sharing our knowledge, which was, till today, I feel like it has greatly impacted me.
That's fantastic, and that's a really great example from Multicultural Centre for Women's Health about how we can ensure that services are high quality, gender equitable, accessible, and culturally safe. So, thanks. So we will be focusing on 4 overarching action areas in this module. Number 1 will be ensuring that services are high quality, gender equitable, accessible, and culturally safe. The second will be building workforce capacity to be more culturally and disability inclusive. Number 3 will be prioritising capacity development opportunities that will strengthen leadership of migrant and refugee women, non-binary and gender diverse people with disabilities in communities, and subsequently raising their voices in decision making. And number 4 will be investing in understanding the experiences of migrant and refugee women, non-binary and gender diverse people with disabilities to inform action.
Action Area 1. Ensure that services are high quality, gender equitable, accessible, and culturally safe.
So Nadia, what are some things that services can do better to understand the barriers faced by people from multicultural communities with disabilities?
I think first we have to understand that just from the word multicultural, that there is a different array of cultural backgrounds. And as well, and this is the same with having a disability, because everyone has a different, if you have a disability, you might not be facing difficulties that are similar. So how can a service, better understand? They would have to actually, find the niche that they want to better understand. So for example, I'm an autistic woman, so probably they want to understand, how a person with autism or ADHD, how it is, how can they help the person with the barriers. I think very important is education. in a more formal setting, I would say hiring a lived experience consultant like myself, from a multicultural background, living with a disability, to come in and run workshops to help educate what are the actual barriers that we face. It might not be the same overall, but I think it will bring, a more authenticity, and as well as help, everyone or employees to better understand the barriers and how, the service can help people's multicultural women with disabilities. Informally, I would say will be to create, spaces for networking within with disability organizations or with people with disabilities, and just to touch base on, like what is an actual barrier. It would be, one example would be that we do not have family supports. Like for myself, I am still very much on my own with my spouse, so it's just the two of us. And it makes it really, really challenging when we want to have our, different commitments, either employment, even just having time to ourselves, self-care. It is very, very challenging for us to actually manage, or who looks after the children, who does, who does the school runs and stuff like that. So I think it is very important that organizations or services actually have a, bring in people with disabilities to actually understand what are the barriers we face.
Thank you so much, Nadia. Those were very good examples, and I could relate to some of it as a migrant woman as well. I just wanted, and maybe you touched on these as well in your examples, but can you tell us some ways that the services can be more accessible and culture safe with the barriers that you just mentioned?
I think accessibility, definitely reliable childcare. I've been to a few courses, and a few times, I think pretty much almost all of the courses, we have had the option of childcare while we are in the course. So there is someone to look after our child if we really need to bring our children with us so that we can attend the course. And that is very, very, impressive and helpful. And I've seen other mothers bring in their children, and it's really heartwarming to see that women could actually complete a course and they do not have having to care for their children, the barrier of having to care for their children, to hold them back.
Now that's
Action Area 2. Build workforce capacity to be more cultural and disability inclusive.
So Nadia, can you tell us some examples of programs or systems that demonstrate to you that an organisation was committed to cultural and disability inclusive practice?
I think in the beginning I mentioned on hiring lived experience consultants. Another one would be actually a step towards building workforce capacity, which I went through with PACE, which was PACE had networking events. It's very informal, so if you have participated in their courses, you could come down after work to the PACE organization and to just meet up with other migrant women, have some things to drink, have some food, which were all free. And you could, just have, sharing sessions with other women. And I felt the first time I went for the networking event, it was amazing. I made so many friends, and I know this is quite an emotional part for me because at that time I did not have many friends. In fact, I did not have any friends, when I first came to Melbourne. So I made many friends, and it's very important for migrant and refugee women to actually find that social connection because our experiences, our living arrangements, our cultural backgrounds are all very different. but somehow our experiences as migrants are pretty much similar, and we really bond over that, just sharing the challenges we face and how, if something has helped another person, how it could have helped, someone else. And I feel that that is very important, very, very helpful. And over the time that I have participated within PACE, I have actually, even be given opportunities for employment. I was given opportunities to be a public speaker for different events through MCWH, and that has, helped my career growth tremendously.
And now I was just going to ask, so if we think about services that you may use or your son may use, so the disability and or multicultural services, what are things that they need to do or they need to consider to build their workforce to be more responsive to cultural and accessibility?
I think from my experience is just being able to participate. If a service or an organization has something for us, for example, maybe just bringing my son for therapy, whether I am able to actually bring him for therapy, whether I have the, capacity to travel. I think travel is another very important thing that gets missed out, because when I first came here, I couldn't drive. I had no license. It took me a while, because just to go and learn to drive, it financially, and also I have to find the time, because someone has to care for the kids for me to actually go for lessons. And I couldn't, it was so difficult for me to travel. So it is very important for services and organizations to actually, understand that, to actually even participate for, women or non-binary migrant and refugee women with disabilities. That is the very first barrier, whether we can even participate. Yeah.
Action Area 3. Prioritise the capacity development opportunities that will strengthen the leadership of migrant and refugee women, non-binary and gender diverse peoples with disabilities in communities, and subsequently their voices in decision making.
Nadia, this takes us to the next question, which is about workforce, and I guess the importance of having migrant refugee women and non-binary people with disability among workforce. I just wanted to ask, have you experienced any barriers? Because you talked about PACE and how it provided opportunities. Did you experience that these opportunities were much less in other settings or in employment?
I have definitely faced a lot of barriers towards employment. Not only do I have a disability, I am a carer to disabled children. So I have one son who has very high support needs. So it is quite, I wouldn't say impossible, but it is very, very challenging for me to actually work full time. So I was not employed before, but then through PACE, I was able to have, opportunities here and there, pretty much flexible, that I could participate in, and, build my professional background. And I feel that is very helpful, because I have, from where I was before a few years back, it has been quite, I wouldn't say a big growth, but there has been some growth in my professional background. And that is very, very crucial for migrant and refugee women, because as we know, it's very important to have financial security. Yeah. When we come here, and especially if you're carers or you are the main, I would say, the sole caregiver in the house, financially you are, I wouldn't say compromised, but you do not have that financial security, because you're dependent on the other person. And in the in the situation whereby you will need to be, finding, getting a job or something like that, PACE would really help migrant and refugee women actually build towards that, so that in the event that, like you need to finally get back into the workforce, that you have gradually built your way there.
So Nadia, what are some ways that organisations can better build relationships with members of the community in an accessible and culturally safe way?
I think I've touched on a few, which is the networking opportunities, hiring the, consultant that's living with disability from a multicultural background. Services should audit their policies and practices regularly as well, to make sure that, everything is culturally safe, and that people with disability are able to give feedback, and that, everything is going well, that nothing is, being overlooked.
Nadia, how can we foster the leadership of women and non-binary and gender diverse people from multicultural backgrounds with disabilities? What's one way we can really foster that and grow that?
I feel that there should be more women's spaces and programs. Like there should be programs that are specifically for women and non-binary people. I think there isn't enough. To be honest, there isn't enough. There should be, hubs and like community groups that are really active out there, creating all these safe spaces where women can go and network and chat and have fun. I think fun is sometimes forgotten. And from those spaces, women can actually find, like a trusted person or trusted people that they can turn to. I think at the end of the day, women are very much isolated because of all our, responsibilities. So it's very important that we have accessible and safe programs that and women anywhere can participate in.
Action Area 4. Invest in understanding the experiences of migrant and refugee women, non-binary and gender diverse people with disabilities to inform action.
And we're just wondering if you could tell us how organisations can better understand the experiences of migrant and refugee women, non-binary and gender diverse people in their communities. I know you've talked about auditing previously, but are there some other ways that they can sort of gather that information?
So I was part of the Autism Roadmap co-design. So it was a small paid opportunity to come in and share what are the challenges and what are the changes that we want to see for autistic people. And I think that is very important. So if services and organizations are really keen to improve and be inclusive and accessible, they should really look into providing these paid opportunities and to gather the information from migrant and refugee women, non-binary and gender diverse people with disabilities. Yeah.
So that brings us to the end of Module 4. Thank you, Nadia, for being with us and sharing your lived experience and expertise to help build the capacity of organisations to prevent violence against migrant and refugee women, non-binary and gender diverse people with disabilities.
It is important to note that while research shows that migrant and refugee women, non-binary and gender diverse people with disabilities experience violence at much higher rates over longer periods of time and are less likely to report, there is still a lack of research on the experiences of violence against migrant and refugee people with disabilities.
Violence is preventable, but it's essential that prevention and advocacy organizations are sufficiently resourced. Federal and state governments need to continue to fund more research about migrant and refugee people with disabilities and gender-based violence to demonstrate the scale and importance of the issue, its impact, and the best approaches to prevent it before it begins.
For more resources on preventing violence against migrant and refugee women, non-binary and gender diverse people with disabilities, please visit the Women with Disabilities Victoria's website at wdv.org.au/family-violence-resources.